for day 2 of our practical review, we're going to start off the question number 1 that says, make a clipping mask of the zebra image using the Safari title. Then add a 2-point red stroke to the clipping mask. So if you look at the example and zoom in, you just see the image inside the text with the red stroke. Now, a clipping mask is something you find in the layers panel. So let's make sure we have the layers panel up. Let's find the layer named animal layer. That's where everything is located. If we open this little arrow and we see the sub-layers, our shape is on top of our picture. And in order to make a clipping mask, we have to be selected on the main layer, the larger layer. We cannot be selected on the sub-layer because the clipping mask button down here will disappear. It's only activated when you click on the main layer. Then you should be able to hit Make Release Clipping Mask, and the image should be clipped into the shape. The last thing we want to do is kind of take the shape here and select it. We're going to select it by hitting that little circle next to the word where it says compound, the word Safari. We're going to add a red stroke. Make sure I have the letter red. And it says 2 points, so I'm going to put it to 2 and hit enter. It's very subtle, but you should see a red line around your shape. Okay, for question 2, it's telling you to use the appropriate shape tool to create a symmetrical 8-pointed star with long points, similar to the shape that's shown here below. So first things first, we know we have a star tool located with all our other tools. Second, if we want a specific size shape, an amount of points on something, we have to just click on our artboard. We'll always get a little box with all our settings. So we know we need the star to have 8 points. But if I just put 2 and 2, watch what happens. I'm gonna get a shape that looks like this. Let me put some color in here so you can see. I don't want that. I want the middle radius to be much bigger than the second radius. So let's try this again. This time I'm gonna put a radius of like 6 for radius 1 and 2 for radius 2. See how much more aligned it is to this here? And that's exactly what you should be doing to make an 8-pointed star that looks similar to the example image. The next question tells you to trace the image using the sketched art preset. Image trace is just taking a picture and turning it into a vector. So to do this, we're gonna have to pull up our image trace panel, and all our panels are under window. We wanna select the image. And in this one, it says sketched art. So if you go to the preset, we should be able to hit sketched art. But it says to make the line thicker by adjusting the threshold to be 150. Threshold is here. I can type the word 150. That's all you have to do for this. The next question has to do with creating a scatter brush, which we've created in the past. The first thing we're going to need is our brush panel. Then we're going to activate our art piece, the little leaves here. Create the little plus button on the bottom that allows you to create a new brush. Choose scatter from the options, and then follow the settings provided. So now that you've made that brush, it says to apply the new brush to both lines. So let's select the first line, click on the brush you made, and since you made the colorization method tints, it's gonna take the same color as the line, and you should have something that looks like this in the end. The next question has to do with graphic styles. Graphic styles are just attributes you can save and apply to other things. So it says create a new graphic style named design colors based on the text. Let's pull up our graphic styles panel, again under window. We wanna activate the text, and we want to create a new one. To create a new one, we want to click this options button because this one's going to allow us to name it, and it does ask for a specific name. Let's hit new graphic style and then type it. That's all you have to do. The next question has to do with some attributes of an image. So it tells you to change the following properties of the figure shadow. So this is the shadow. It tells you to change the opacity to 50. The color to shadow 3. So if I hit fill, I should be able to find colors they're named. So if I hover my mouse over them, click on shadow 3. But then it says to change the blending mode to hard light. Blending mode is how one layer interacts with another one. You can pull this up by going to window transparency or clicking on the opacity button. If you click where it says normal, you should be able to choose hard light. Question 7 has to do with the rotation, but it might not always tell you have to rotate something. For example, it just says change the angle, but we should know that when it says change the angle, it means a rotation. So we're going to activate our shape. We're going to go up to Object, Transform. Rotation is a transformation, and then insert the degrees. Then it says to change the color of the stroke to be CMYK blue. So stroke, find CMYK blue. Again, all the names you can figure out when you hover over it. That's it. It doesn't tell you to change the stroke width, so don't do that. The next question has a lot to do with definitions related to type functions. So we're going to move these like labels over and really think about what kind of type we're working with. So the first description says, adjust the baseline of the text along a graphic shape. And we know that type on a path is basically when you type on graphic shapes or paths. So the baseline just means where your words are starting. So this one is type on a path, the first one. Text that automatically flows when the text frame is adjusted is called area type. And this is when you basically click and drag and make a text box. And what that means is when you resize your text box, everything's going to automatically resize with it. So that is area type. Text that automatically distorts is called point type. And the difference is when you take your type tool and you don't make a box, you just click, that's point type. That means you just pointed and typed. When I type something, if I take this box and make it larger, do you notice that the text box doesn't get larger? The actual words get larger. They get distorted. So text that automatically distorts is point type. The last one is text wrap, and that's when you have a picture and type, and when you want a graphic to be like placed in front of a body of text and wrap around the words. This question here is a little trickier. It says modify the line below to resemble the sketch shown in the template layer. Modify only one point on the line and do not add or move any anchor points. So let's zoom in here, and you can see the line that you have to modify is a straight path. The line that should be curved is the example. So let's take our direct selection tool, click on the anchor point, and let's convert it with our properties panel. Then we should be able to kind of move these handles around. And get a more pointed look. It tells you not to add or remove any anchor points, so do keep that in mind. You should only edit one thing. Now, oftentimes you actually import Photoshop documents into Illustrator and vice versa, so it's kind of important you know the import settings. So this question says you are importing a Photoshop document into an Illustrator document. You need to allow revisions and include non-visible layers. Drag the arrow or arrows to the correct option or options to meet the requirements. So when you open something from Photoshop into Illustrator, this is what you're going to get as a preview, right? Let's say this is my image. You have 3 options down here. The first option you should select in order to allow revisions, meaning edits, is convert layers to objects. If you see underneath, it says make text editable where possible. It basically allows you to edit things from your Photoshop document inside of Illustrator. The second part says it should include non-visible layers, which is import hidden layers. So these 2 boxes should be checked off if you want a document to do these settings. The next set of question says use the orange circle in the document as a base color. Create a new color group in your swatches panel that uses monochromatic harmony color guide. The keyword here in this question is color guide. We have used this before, and a color guide basically creates harmony rules based on your base color. So first thing you should do is select the orange. That makes it a base color. If you see in the bottom of my layers toolbar, you see it here. And then we're going to go to window and pull up color guide. It looks something like this. Right? This is the base color. Set the base color. It's orange now. If I click this little drop down, I have a whole bunch of color rules, right? And this one says monochromatic. So I'm going to click monochromatic. But there's one more step I have to do. I have to create a new color group in my swatches panel. There is a button on the bottom of my panel here that says save color group to swatches panel. When I do that, I'm going to go now to my swatches panel, going back to window. You should see on the bottom that I have saved that color group here. Next question has to do with like tool recognition. So I'm going to again move these over. Okay. So it says to use this tool to select an entire object with one click. We know that's our selection tool. It selects entire objects. This description says use this tool to select objects with similar properties or attributes with one click. And that is the magic wand. So basically, if I take the magic wand and I want everything that's blue in this document to be selected, all I have to do is click on blue and everything that's blue will be selected. Next one says use this object to select the parent of a selected object. Parent is meaning group. So if you go to your direct selection tool, you click and hold, there's a group selection tool. So if I have something that's grouped, like I have the word and the picture grouped, if I click, you see I can have like individual letters selected. So that's what it means by parent. And the last one says use this tool to select an anchor point or segment. This direct selection tool allows us to select anchor points or segments. Question 13 says your client is designing an ad for a new fine dining restaurant. Which of the following images speaks to their demographic? Demographic means the people you're trying to get to buy the product or notice the product. So we're talking about fine dining. Which one of these actually looks like a fine dining restaurant? Right? This one here, the fancy one with the plate. Everything else is kind of like, a cafe, a diner maybe, a pizza joint. It's the only one that screams fancy. Question 14 is another tool recognition question. So let's move these things over. Let's start off with the first one. It says used to draw straight or curved paths. That's definitely our beloved pen tool. This says used to modify the type of anchor point on a path. This is called convert anchor point. This modifies type. Used to decrease the number of anchor points. Well, if we're talking about decrease, even if you don't know it, you know that minus would decrease. So this is the delete anchor point tool. And that leaves increase, the add anchor point tool. The last question has to do with additive or subtractive color spaces. So additive colors is the combination of colors added together creates new color. And subtractive means the removal of them overlapping. So you'll see that we have CMYK color mode and we have RGB here. RGB is an additive color mode, whereas CMYK is a subtractive color mode.